Hey guys, I thought I might do what I've never attempted it before, is a watch along video. I don't know if this is going to work, so this is going to be interesting. Now, the movie that I've picked to be my first watch along is actually one that has just dropped here digitally in Australia, and that is Journey to Bethlehem. Now, I saw this 4 times in movie theaters. A, because I am a Christian, and B, because, well, Milo. So I thought we would do a watch along. I have to say, this is not my first non-biblical movie. Now, what do I mean by biblical, non-biblical? I own 2 of these sort of biblical movies. That would be Paul, the Apostle of Christ, and Risen. Both movies, Paul is actually an apostle of Jesus who never got to meet Jesus. And Risen is actually the Easter story, but from a different point of view. This is the first musical biblical movie. So if you're gonna watch it along, this is where you press play on your DVD, Blu-ray, or digital copy. Let's go. Hello. Thank you. Now, I've noticed a lot of these movies are Sony based, which is unique. But I think the main production house is Fair Films, which I believe is their more, I would say, biblical sort of side of their Sony branch. I believe they brought out Risen and Paul. I believe so. I'll get back to you. If I remember, I'll put it in the comments. We start off with the Magi, which I thought was a brilliant and a voiceover from Mary herself. Now, Mary as a figure, I don't put her on such a high pedestal. I know the Catholics do. As a Salvation Army soldier, I don't. But starting off with the Magi, they understand, I would say they're very much what I would say would be teachers. So they would understand the Jewish Bible very, very well. And they're also, I would say, astrologers and, the ones that we're aware of, I would probably classify them as astrologers. They would understand, they would almost be, if they were from a distant land, they would probably be they might even be temple workers. But the actors that they got to play the 3 wise men, they are so funny and they just crack me up. The weird thing is, the actor who plays one of them is actually also a Disney alumni. He was actually in Pair of Kings. He was the main guard of the 2 kings. So it's a little bit funny that he's in this along with Milo, who's also part of the zombie franchise. So it's nice to see some Disney alumni in this. But their chemistry is so well played off each other. It's really, really cute. And their personalities, they aren't so cookie cutter. They're very They're very unique and they just bounce off each other so well. I think that's so much fun, and they give a lot of life and color to this movie. It sort of takes away from being a straight up drama with that slight element of comedy between the three of them. It gives a little bit of a little bit of fun, a little bit of life. And we hear our first song, which is actually one that I know. And then this title sequence of them traveling up near Judah, it's so uniquely, I think it's uniquely done, with the map sort of being on the ground, and the fact that the map is actually in Hebrew, not in English, gives it another twist to this story, because you've seen maps, especially in the Indiana Jones franchise, that's in English. So the language that they might have been able to read might have been Hebrew. That's nice to see that on the maps, and that actually is in all the maps we see. It's Hebrew and then translates into English. I thought that was so cutely done, and it was a nice little hint of when this is set, not just the music, which to me feels very, very modern. And now we come up to it. A lot of the words around, and then the main ones we see, and we get introduced to Mary, and we find out that she has a conversation with the dad that says, well, I've just been told that I'm about to be engaged. She sounds very headstrong to me. She's not a wishy-washy woman. Like, she has a mind of her own, and it's implied here because her father doesn't have any males. As we just heard just then, he doesn't have any boys to teach the ancient scrolls to. He's taught Mary, so, which reminds me a bit of Yentl in a subtle way. There's also another story about a Jew being taught the scrolls, but female being taught how to spit the scrolls. So you can see that even this far into the movie, she's very headstrong. And we get to meet Fig. And the weird thing is, the actor who plays Deborah is actually the wife of the actor who plays Antioch. So, and they also happen to be Christian. So it's a nice sort of balance. And then we go to Fig, leaving his leaving the little courtyard area. Going back to the actor who plays Deborah, her husband is actually in King Herod's camp, so, which is pretty funny that, and I was watching the interview between, I think it's Merida and Joel. She was cast first, and then they were trying to find someone to belt out that song. The song will come up. And then they just found Joel and blew out the water. Now, Joel is actually in a band called For King Country. And I'm speaking over the first major song we hear. You can feel that these three actors are very comfortable with each other, and they have like a very strong sisterly bond. They are very happy the fact that she's getting married, and Mary just doesn't want a bar of it. And I think that's a great sort of, they're trying to convince her within this like 3-so-minute song that she should get married. And she's so she's very headstrong. That's what I'm trying to say. She's very headstrong in her conviction. No, I don't want to be married. And I love the little pieces of comedy with the other partners that they meet within the song. It's there's a little peppers of comedy just peppered in that it really just, I'm a fan of musicals. So the successful musicals to me are when songs that you hear, it comes from a place where, where the characters don't know what to say with words, so they have to sing it. That's where I like a musical. Not just a song because it's that time, if that makes sense. Like, you have to have a song 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in. That type of musical does not make a lick of sense to me. Maybe because I've seen theatre and that's where it comes from. And I love that at the end, Mary sort of comes around to the idea of getting married. And sort of her answer is sort of who is her betrothed in the very next scene. Which I think is, it's like her question sort of being answered in a very subtle way. That question has, and here we see the other co-lead. We finally meet Joseph, who we're really unsure about him at the start. We're not really sure he's just a random stranger, but to her he is a random stranger. But you can see that there's a bit of a spark. There's a little bit of a spark that pops up. And when she drops the bomb that she's already engaged, he doesn't back off, which I think is very, very, very funny. And then he wants to give her ironically, a fig. It's so charming. It's annoyingly charming. And then she sticks it in his mouth. And bumps into fig. That bloody horse goes everywhere. That bloody dog goes everywhere. We have fig. And then we go back to the map and we see the sort of, I would say, we've seen the A, the B, and now we're going to the C storyline, which is King Herod and Antioch. I mentioned Deborah. He's the other half of that marriage with Joel, who, like myself, have heard the story of the biblical story of Jesus Christ. So he would have come in with a bit of an understanding of what the story was all about. And we see the great Anthony LaPaglia, who I already know from Puss in Boots. So it was nice to see him not play, be live action, be a little bit over the top. and just eat, just chew the scenery. And Joel going toe to toe with him, and he's more known as a singer than an actor. But of course, he's had to do music videos and stuff. But he's a little bit of an inexperienced. This would only be his third movie that he's done. But the fact that he could go toe to toe with, I would say, a acting heavyweight as in Lapalia, he holds his own against him. He just is just chewing the scenery, and you can see why the people really do not like King Herod, and he just doesn't give a rat's ass about the Jewish people. You see that Anthony Pock, I think because he is a soldier, he would have to have been around the people a little bit more, and he's just come back from Rome with a order from Rome saying, because at this time the land of Judah was under Roman control. And then we go into Anthony's one and only, which has a lot of comedy just sprinkled in, and you could tell Anthony, and as King Herod, he loves the fact that the Jewish people despise him. And he just loves the fact that they just have to and he loves the fact that the Jewish people, and you see that he uses his power sort of over the Jewish people. He just loves it. And he is considered the villain of the, very much the villain of the piece. And you see in little shots where Antipoc doesn't know whether he wants to follow his dad. You see in when he looks at Antipoc, there's a little bit of burning in Herod's eyes, and the scene here where Antipoc just starts dancing with it's so funny, but Joel does it with such seriousness in his face, and the fact that he goes, "I want to kill him," you can tell that they, as in Antipoc and Herod, don't have the strongest bond. He is actually the firstborn, so in theory, he would actually be the next man in line to become the king. He loves the fact that he has power, and I think the power has sort of gone to his brain. He's drunk on power, and this is a clear example of him feeling that. And Antipoc doesn't have that sort of drunkenness. He's a little bit more grounded. I'd say a little bit more grounded. Even though in theory he is the second in command, I think it's like the commander of the guards. But I feel like this version of King Herod, he's very much drunk on power. And this song, Good to Be King, is sort of that power ballad and very much the villain the villain song, and then we go from that sort of craziness into a party, and Jacob and Rial, things is a bit odd to have a full-blown party. It's supposed to be a simple engagement service. It's supposed to be an engagement, just a simple engagement. And they're just having a full-blown engagement party, and he made comments that it feels more like a wedding ceremony. So you can feel there is a lot of joy in her dad. Because they're not from this town. They're not from the town that they're outsiders that have come to the town. So they're a little bit on the back foot. But I've noticed in the background of this shot between Mary and her mother, there is a candle holder. I know a little bit about the Jewish Passover. That is slightly incorrect. So they would have. So I don't. The weird thing is, there's actually a Jew on set. I'm surprised he didn't spot that up, because he knows more about Passover than probably what the director would. And so that's a little inconsistency that I've spotted. So, and then we get into this sort of, Mary gets given I love that little head, that little like necklace head dress thing. And you can tell that the younger sister is a little smitten on with her betrothed. It's this ribbon thing that she receives from mum. I think it's so delicately beautiful. And she just wears it so delicately, so I think it's beautiful. And I would probably hypothesize that the way that her father was acting in this scene, he could be the one of the priests of this town, but it's not actually like shown. And then we go straight into this sort of joyous song. Mary's still quite hesitant during this scene, but she's just going along with it, and we really don't see who she is betrothed, which I think is a smart move on the creators. You could just see like little glimpses, and you did hear Joseph's voice a little bit when he was hugging Mary's dad, but you don't actually like see his face. I thought that was a very smart, very clever move. That's why I'm still saying he might be a priest. And then they move them. Mary's mum and sisters. They move, and then you got Joseph pull back, and then go. Hold on a dead second. It's the guy she met at the marketplace. And they all go. They've met like the old Russian doll. Ding 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 ding. So, it's a little funny. And I love the fact that her mother goes, she can feel the tension. It goes, Mary, I think you need to go for a walk. Like, she can read her daughter's, she can read the room quite well, and she knows her daughter. And then they just go back to the party. I thought that was funny. And then we have the confrontation scene where and then we go and then they have that, I think they're like their second real conversation, but this one feels a little bit more real. And they have their, I would say they're probably their first fight.
May I just point out, you weren't exactly unfriendly.
Which I can see why a song would fit perfectly in this scene, because she's very frustrated about the whole situation. She feels like she is being lied to by Joseph. And she doesn't know what her feelings are. She doesn't understand. She has dreams of herself. She wants to be a teacher. And in essence, she does become a teacher. She teaches Jesus. And we find out that Joseph also has dreams. So they both sort of come with their own like wants, dreams, and then we sort of go into this song where they both sort of they both don't know what they're doing, and they both don't know whether to follow their head, follow their heart. And I believe back at this time, they would have been about, I'm guessing, 15, 16. They would have been quite young when they had, when this would have happened. They would have been quite young. So they would have had pressure from, but two different sides, I would say. That is, they would have had both pressure from mum and from dad, from Joe's side and Mary's side. And I believe there's still arranged marriages in that culture, the Jewish faith. Because I don't know a butt ton of the Jewish faith. I just know bits and pieces. So it would have happened, and I love the fact the head covering that Mary is wearing, it's actually tucked into her belt. So I think that's a really sweet little detail. And she's still holding on to that piece of jewelry that Mum gave her. And I think by the end of this song, they realize that they both have a similar viewpoint of marriage, and I think by the end of it, I think they might have accepted the fact that they are, yes, betrothed to each other, and they are fiancés. And I think by the end they go, okay, we weren't really truthful when we first met, but I think we can, between now and the wedding, work out our differences and hear each other out. So I thought, nicely handled. And then they probably go back to the party, and And they go. And then we get to the scene where pretty much I would say the actual Bible story actually starts, which is when Mary is told about her forthcoming pregnancy. And that sort of, I use a very Australian terminology, it really throws a spanner in the story. Because if God didn't come in and say to Mary that, yes, you are going to be the mother of Jesus, this foretold Saviour, I think Mary and Joseph would have been married and all of that. The fact that God decided to throw a spanner in their relationship, and we also find out through this scene that Mary's cousin Elizabeth is also expecting. Now, further along in the biblical story, that is actually John the Baptist, which that child actually comes back at the start of Jesus's mission. He's the actual one that baptizes his cousin. So, and the way that, and he wants to tell Mary exactly what God wants, and I think this probably would have been how someone would have reacted to meeting an angel. It's like, what's happening? What the hell's going on? And I think she wouldn't believe it at first. And then she sort of looked at her heart and go, well, this guy is full of baloney. And when you've seen angels being very angelic, and I love sort of the armor sort of look on the top half of Gabriel here. It's really like, it's almost giving the essence of wings coming out, which I thought it looks really, really cool. And the fact that she's in white here shows that she's purity. And she so asks the question, who's gonna believe me? Is my mom and dad gonna believe me? Is my sister's gonna believe me? Joe and his parents gonna believe me? You're telling me blasphemy. This is a load of horse manure. But she sort of comes to the realization that this guy isn't full of baloney. She wants to ask a lot of questions, but he goes before. And then this goes into the nightmares that Herod starts experiencing. So, which is and you can go straight from this into, here where you see sort of God's power sort of giving King Herod nightmares. And I think they picked a great actor to play that sort of menace. You just see a subtle glimpse. But I think it's smart that they never actually showed us, because we see Mary's interaction with the angel, you see Joseph's interaction with the angel, but you never see King Herod's, which I thought was a smart sort of move. And the fact that you see that the star, he internally realizes there's something afoot. And then we go into the scene I was referring to earlier, is when Mary sort of says to her family, this is what I was told last night. which they probably would have known about the prophecy, I think, because they would have read the ancient scrolls. Probably the father would have known about the ancient scrolls and the prophecy, which is all being foretold in the Old Testament, which is what they would have had access to, which is the Old Testament. And this is where sort of, and then go straight into Mary telling Joseph about it. And they realize that they want to break off, because in essence, she's speaking blasphemy. You're not supposed to say any of this type of thing. And go. Sorry, that was my sister. Very much, you're like, as Joseph said in the scene, you really don't want to marry me. You make up this story of that you're pregnant. The angel told you you're pregnant, and this, it comes off very natural in this scene, as though this is how you would have come. You would have how would you feel if your fiance came to you and said, I'm immaculate, I've got an immaculate conception? You would have thought yourself that this was a load of horse manure. This is crazy talk. It's crazy talk. They came as blasphemy, but I think this is a very natural reaction in these two sort of scenes. And all Mary wants is for Joseph to go to sort of say, I believe you. That's all she wants to hear from Joseph's mouth is, I agree with what you're saying. I thoroughly agree with it. And they hear subtle undertones of, say, a mother to a savior and king. I thought it was a great sort of undertone. And then Joseph just opens up the door. You don't know whether, he sort of, you don't know if he wants to go and follow her. I think that door, he'd just been at the doorway. And so she goes into, I would say, a form of confinement. And she decides they send her to a cousin, which is where this song sort of shows that journey between going from her hometown to see her cousin, who is probably quite, when we see Lizzie, is quite further along than Mary is. And I believe that's actually what would happen with women that it's happened in this country, actually, Australia, where mothers that were either raped or unwed mothers, they would send them away. So this is not a new concept. And she herself is very torn. You could feel the pain. Her parents don't believe her. Her sisters just following along with what parents are saying. Joseph isn't believing her. His parents aren't believing her. The only person that could believe what she is saying could be Elizabeth. And it's sort of the idea that sending her to Lizzie weakens the shame that you would that sort of would fall upon Mary's household, because she is an unwed mother carrying a child. That would have brought a humongous amount of shame. And the fact that they didn't really have it before marriage. So that also, the town would have heard about the engagement between Mary and Joseph. So it would have been very much a scandal. They might have thought that Joseph might have been the one to sire this child. So that would have brought shame on maybe two houses, because everyone would have heard about the engagement, and the rumors would have been spreading like wildfire that Mary and Joseph had done the bedroom tango before marriage, and it would have brought a lot of shame on both of them. So that's why Mary was sent to go and stay with Lizzie for a while. She could have quietly had the child, given it to possibly Liz. Then possibly Liz could have been looking after the child. And then we get to the next sort of biblical we see that she's actually made it to Lizzie's house. I'm just saying Lizzie, but I'm very sure. She's gone to Elizabeth's house, and then we see these three idiots again. We see the wise men, which I'd say is comic relief. And then we hear about ancient scrolls, needing to more ancient scrolls.
Why wouldn't you tell us? We never begged.
So they would have had certain scrolls, and I believe the High Temple in Jerusalem would have had even more of the ancient scrolls, because that's the heart of Jewish faith. It's me as a salvo that sort of center of faith would actually be England. So, and we see his love of food come out again, which I think is and then they start whinging about camels. I thought that was so funny.
Could have just been two wise men. Let's go.
If you're hearing another voice, it's my sister giggling. And then you sort of hear, and now we go into. So I'm assuming Mary has told Elizabeth and Zachariah what has happened, and they're more accepting because they would have also have had that similar angel visit. So we know that they probably would have so they're very much more understanding of the situation. So she's in a loving environment now. So and then we go into the scene where he's sort of debating within himself. I don't believe, I half believe her, but I also half think she's speaking out of her butt. And this is where we find out that they've secretly have broken the engagement. Goes to saying, no, let me be the one to break it, not you. And we also see here that his parents decide to go back home, I'm assuming leaving Joseph possibly there, who he could, probably would have gone with them. It's hard to say whether or not Joseph would have travelled with them. This is where you get into the big sort of, I'd say, the debate seat, as I've affectionately called it. And this, you don't, in other versions of the Bible story, you don't really see Joseph sort of being ripped. This one does, and it does very, very creatively within a song. I like the fact that he's part black, part white. So, and the fact that the way that it's been staged, the scenery is all red with fire, and the main set is white. And I love that contrast. And this sort of shows sort of back into the background a bit more. Milo's power that he has with him as a singer. This is actually his, at the time of this would be his, it all depends on Zombies was filmed before, Zombies 3 was filmed before or after this. This would be his third or fourth musical. So he has background in singing and dancing, and this is sort of shown in this little fight. He has that background, and I think him doing Dancing with the Stars right before Zombies 2 has given him such a good foundation for a scene like this. And one of the ones you actually see him play the sort of dark character. So, and you can see by the end of this song, again, he goes from, so we're sort of assuming this is actually a dream that Gabriel has given him. And he feels like he's being torn between, and she would have been stoned. Mary would have been stoned for, not just for blasphemy, but for being an unwed mother. So, by the end, he's gone, yes, I'm going to follow her. I'm going to go. And I think that by the end of, I would say, this dream or song, that's why it has a bit more of a dreamy feel to it. And sort of at the end, Mary sort of transforms into Gabriel. You don't ever see the dream of Joseph. That's why I'm saying, I think if they had 3 dreams, they had one of Herod's dreams, I think it would have lessened the impact of these 2 that we see. And again, if you notice exactly what Amalo is wearing in that scene, in the scene where he's awake, he's also in white, which is exactly the same color that Mary was wearing, where Fiona was wearing. She was also wearing white when she met the angel. And we go back to King Herod's dreams, and I love the fact that actually we sort of do see a dream in a subtle way. And this is the first time we get he disturbs the guards, which probably would have been just outside of the door. So you do subtly see a dream, and then we saw now we meet the sort of the 4 kings meet, and we get sort of introduced to the gifts that they that you see that the gifts they present to Herod are the identical gifts that they give to Mary and Joseph, which is gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold and frankincense is actually something that are very much herbs. They're actually part of the same family, actually, which is really weird. And this is in the Bible. I'm not sure. Don't ask me which version of the gospel is for. Where you actually see you actually hear about the three wise men actually meeting King Herod. So this is another sort of pylon of Jews of the story, because you need Herod, you need Mary, you need Joseph, you need the wise men, you need the angel. Elizabeth, you don't really need to see Elizabeth. That's not really, I would say, a stone in the story. But it's a nice sort of story to part of it to mix in, because she actually did go and see Lizzie. So this is another one of those stepping stones to the end of the story. And then this actually does happen. They do go and read the scrolls, and then they do actually go to Bethlehem. They sort of slip out of the night because Herod starts feeling, I would say, threatened at this point of another king to replace him, not just Antipater, who it would be the natural successor to King Herod, but another sort of leader to come up and rally against him. And we sort of, he says exactly what I'm thinking when it comes to this throne. It is a freaking lion. It is a lion's head. It is intimidating. And it sort of is very much the focal point of this very room. And it's very imposing. And then we go into this very comedic song. Which I think is really, it's really clever. And again, you do need sort of that sort of song to break up. I did a little bit of research once. This is actually a herb that actually would be like penicillin today. And frankincense has that similar properties, so. But we're not sure exactly how many magi actually did go to actually see Jesus. We assume it's 3 because of the 3 gifts. So this is very much what we assume. And Joel is not taking 2 bars of it. I love the comedy of Joel just standing there going, what are these 3 idiots? And King Harris just chewing it up. He's eating it up. He's giggling. And this part gets a little bit serious. And the fact that you got sort of Joel sort of looking into the book, but you don't actually see the pieces of gold. You just see the glow, so that's an old technique. I love that line. Like a king's thing. I thought that he just is eating this up. And I think they did pick the really good actor to portray Herod. Because I think they really did pick a really good actor to play. Because he's played that sort of menace. And I think and then Joel's just going along with it. I think that's just a little bit on the funny side. And then you just got the soldier standing around going, not saying anything, but you know in the back of your head, Joel's just thinking, what the flinch are these three idiots talking about? And it just gives like the stare of death from and then we get into Antipoc's sort of mission, and this is where and then he sort of gets scared of his own throat. So the fact that he is so close to Mary in the scene, Antipoc, in the scene that is a little bit funny. He pretty much is like two other times he just barely misses Mary. And then we get Marlo come in. So we get the answer to the ultimate deception in this scene where he actually goes and finds Lizzie. And just in earshot, you hear this other conversation. And he is so close. So yeah, Joe knows that's a load of hogwash. And I think it's so subtle that I've just noticed it now. He's always wearing an ear sort of like cuff thing, which is I noticed is a very similar design to his own father's crown. I also noticed in the same when you see him profile, it looks like he's got two tusks, like two walrus tusks. It's a little bit funny. So, but he would have had so many, as the prince, he would have had a lot of things, and it's a little bit fun. And again, we see Fig. The donkey. So this is sort of the first little scene where we understand that Mary is a load of danger. And so this is the first sort of scene that we understand that she is a load of.
Generosity is appreciated.
So it's different. And they hide each other in hay, which is actually a smart move on Joseph's part. And Orbis gets hit on the head. And I think this scene is a lot on the softer. Really soft and really well handled, real well played. And they would have overheard the conversation between Antipoc and Lizzie. They would have heard that conversation completely. And this is where they sort of formulate that sort of plan. And then we sort of get the we sort of see, I'd say, the cogs sort of working in both their heads.
Great, yes. Yes, we will go to Nazareth in the morning to make arrangements, and I will claim this child as my own.
No, we're getting married right here, today.
And then they sort of say, so pretty much I would probably classify it as they eloped. They pretty much elope here, which I don't know if they would have done that in the ancient world. They would have eloped. But I know that's very common occurrence. Here they do a lot of eloping. And so they sort of say that fact that Zachariah is actually a priest. And I noticed the clothing that you see Joseph wearing here is exactly the same outfit he wore during the betrothal, and I do love that dress. It is really cute. And again, another song which makes a lot of sense. It's almost like they're saying vows to each other in a subtle way. And I like the fact that you see Antipoc wear the Jewish man prayer ribbons. And I think this is a ceremony that actually happened. I'm not sure about Jewish weddings. So this is almost like they're saying vows to each other in a subtle way, and they do this really cute ceremony where they sort of very symbolic, because you don't see rings exchange, but we see this sort of ribbon ceremony, like these ribbons of cloth are sort of representing them becoming a couple, and you go into this little dance, like fantasy dance scene, which I think is really cute. So I would have to do more research about Jewish weddings to see if this is really close to what an actual Jewish wedding would be. So I think this is really sweetly handled. You see that from Joseph's side, he's definitely fallen for her. Mary's a little bit more weary, and you almost think they're going to kiss on lips, but they don't. I love the fact they leave that towards the end, and I think this is so sweetly handled. And then we get back to these three guys.
The three idiots.
And this is where they finally find out. We finally find out exactly what they know, that he is supposed to be born in Bethlehem, which is exactly where they go after the scene.
I don't understand your obsession with this peasant and her baby.
So he's starting to sort of So, from what I could tell from an interview that Joel did, is you could almost say he could have been, this is like he could have been the first converter. And you do actually see him at the start sort of question Dad, and then the next time you sort of see him with the Magi, you start to
How about, I don't know, a good night's sleep?
he's really starting to question Daddy at this stage, and
My father wants the mother fed.
you can sense a little bit of that darkness.
My favorite vintage.
You can sense a little bit of that darkness that
Job in morning Bethlehem.
Oh goodness, I'm quite certain.
But clearly, we must find the mother before they do.
you can sense a little bit of that darkness in Actipoc. And then next scene you see is the wise men actually going to Bethlehem, surprising enough ahead of Mary, who decides to go back to Nazareth with Joe. And
They must have left in the night. Why are they there? I have reports of them heading toward Bethlehem. That must be where the mother is.
and this is sort of where they decide to drop the bomb on the citizens.
Now what magic description was that? Take them back to Bethlehem and keep every breath.
Which actually does happen. There's prophesied that there would be a great cry out of Bethlehem, and they actually do this. Exactly what King Herod is saying, that they actually do kill every baby, I believe under 1 year old, just after Jesus is born. They kill every baby.
All Judea revolts against you.
Um,
Rome may question your
and this is where they decide to go, okay, we'll do the census, because now Joseph is Mary's husband. She's part of his family, and he has to go back to his hometown, which is something definitely that would have when a census like this would have happened. She isn't her parents, so she would have had to go with her husband. It's very this is exactly what I'm saying. They decide to use the census as a way of drawing out Mary.
The census allows feeble soldiers to search every home and count every head. All in the name of Caesar.
So they decided to use exactly what Caesar has told them to do, but manipulate make it their plan. Which here you can see that Antioch is starting to, I would say, crack.
But if you can find her, kill them all.
Starting to crack under Dad's sort of pressure, which is why the next song comes in.
My blood runs through my veins.
And this is where that song sort of pops in. Because within this scene sort of says he's questioning himself. He is sort of, am I just as evil as my old man? Yes, his blood is within in my veins, but am I like him? Am I as ruthless? Am I worthy of being the king? And he's sort of questioning, can I be like my dad? Am I just as ruthless? Am I just as mad as my dad? Or can I be myself? which I think is he doesn't know whether he has this darkness within him. And by the end of the movie, you sort of do see him have lots of light within him. But at this stage of the movie, he's very... How can I put this into words? He doesn't know whether he is his father's son. Or he can have his own... He's questioning his finally saying he's starting to see his dad crack, and he's not sure if he himself will crack exactly like his old man. He doesn't know whether he's going to be a kind king or a ruthless king. And that is where his internal struggle comes in. And I think with Joel already being I would say, I'm not sure if he's a Grammy winner or I don't know, he has that power already in his voice. I've heard some of his songs and he has that power already. And I still don't know by the end of the scene whether Antipoc is exactly like his old man or not. He still has that struggle. And we go back to our B storyline of Mary and Joseph. They're finally sort of slipped into married life. You see a little bit of them enjoying it. And then we almost see a kiss. Again. And this is exactly what Antipoc has said.
I'm here by order of Caesar for the census. Name,
We actually see them actually
place of birth. Nazareth?
I'm from Bethlehem.
Then by order of Caesar, you and your family must travel to Bethlehem and be counted immediately.
Sir, my wife is with child. As you can see, she is in no condition to travel that far.
There are no exceptions.
and we actually see the plan actually come into fruition about the census.
Birth in a dungeon.
And he probably goes,
Of course, we will leave first thing in the morning.
and the way that Joseph is talking, I'm guessing she would have been about 8 or 9 months along. Like, she would have been ripe. She probably would have been no condition. Because I know for in today's society, if you want to fly, you can't, not, if you're like within like 8 months pregnant, you can't fly. So,
I don't know if we can do this.
Okay. You heard him, Joseph. Had to go.
so he decides to bugger it. Let's go. And you just see his sort of tenderness in this scene. And I think it's well handled. And then again we see the map motif pop up again, and I would have probably have said by the end of it, by the end of this journey, this probably would have destroy most marriages in essence. And I love, you really do see them journey, and it would have been grueling. They would have just had Fig, so it would have been much harder than if you had made the similar journey today, because they could have just gone with a 4x4. Maybe not even a 4x4, but by the way I can tell by the I don't even know if a 4x4 could even get through this sort of terrain. It probably would have used horse and donkey. It looks really hard, which is probably why they would have been very, very weary at the very, very weary. And I love the fact that you sort of hear Mary's song pop up in this part, which I think is a great sort of and this is why I'm sort of saying this is the second time there was almost a meeting between our two leads. And we already know that Joseph, he is a local. He would have known all the ways to get in and out of the city. As a local Parramatta, someone who grew up in Parramatta in Sydney, I know my way around Sydney like the back of my own hand. He would have known the best ways to come in and out of the city. So, which Joe uses that information for his benefit.
What is it? What did you see?
He's here. And it's son.
So,
This isn't safe, Joseph.
It's probably just the senses. We're married now. I think it'll be okay.
So we go looking for him, no one.
and they're the only ones that know, assuming it's the plan about why the census has taken place. Everyone else probably just thought,
I can't go back. I'm sorry. I promised to protect you. But I failed you in every possible way.
Joseph! Not anyone knows Joseph is.
and again, they sort of have a little bit of a fight here.
I know another way in.
And exactly, he uses his knowledge as being a local to sort of get around the guards. And then we see sort of, they don't feature in the story, but in the actual biblical story, we actually know that shepherds actually see Jesus as well. Here we just focus on the wise men's visit, not the shepherds. Shepherds also would have. And then he complains about the fact that he smells like sheep canard, which I think is really funny. This guy just finds an excuse to bloody whinge. It's so funny. He goes, you're right, I smell like I've been in. And then he goes and whinges again. I think that's so funny. It's so hilarious and it's so funny.
I call them the three idiots.
Actually, you see in the deleted scenes, which I've seen, he actually does use that tree that you see as child uses as a catapult, and it fails spectacularly.
Creating a distraction.
Actually, you do. They do say that a pregnant woman does have more strength. So, and then you can subtly see the rope that is on the tree. I never really noticed that detail before, and I thought that was. Which actually you see at the start of the movie that actually happens. So it's nice to see he's very much a I would say a bit of a bloodhound. Which I don't know if that's true with donkeys, if they are part bloodhound. And this is also within the biblical story that they can't find a safe place to sleep. I've done a sermon that I have heard. They do actually go to Joseph. They actually go and be actually with family, but the area that the family is in is full up because they would have all come here. So they actually have to stay with the animals. So that's where that subtle, that's why they say it's a barn. They say it an inn, it's a barn, which I don't think historically would have happened, but they go on that. So that's where the image of a barn this sort of comes into play, but it probably wouldn't have happened that way. So and we see Fig to the rescue. So So it probably wouldn't have happened this way, but the fact that he probably have used his bit of his local knowledge, which I thought was a really cute sort of image. And again, it's probably where a lot of people probably don't realize that the prophecy. I would have to look back through Old Testament prophecies to sort of say how accurate, and this does actually happen. Angels do actually go and actually sing to the shepherds who do actually come and see Jesus. I love the fact that Fig is walking outside like a dad. I thought that was really funny. But the fact that the three wise men also see this heavenly song, I don't know if that would have actually have happened. And it's that third time you see Gabriel, and you see that light. And through that light, you actually see all the other people who are linked to the story. You see King Herod. You see Mary's family. You see Antipoch. You see Lizzie with baby John in her arms. Or you don't actually see Joseph's parents, but you see everyone else that was connected to the story. Like they all, well, maybe not King Herod, but the rest of them would have understood, yes, today is the day. Today is the day that was foretold. And then the visit happens with I would say. And then you hear that reprieve of Mary, the savior of baby. And I didn't notice this, but you actually see a tear out of Joseph, which I thought was a subtle. There it goes. He's just a spectator to this, really. Even though he's emotionally involved, he's still a spectator. In essence. And then you see Antipoc spot the three men. And sort of actually go and actually follow them and see exactly where they've gone. And then you hear that reprieve again. Which is actually a line that actually comes in the Herod song. You hear this again, but this time sort of said for Jesus, not for Herod. I think it's which actually I do believe that's actually based on a Christian song. They actually mixed a Christian song in, and so she would have been very overwhelmed. I believe that actually Jesus was actually a year old when they actually turned up. So it didn't actually happen on the same day as birth. It probably wouldn't have happened. I don't get that scene, that shot of Herod. Myself personally.
And was asleep.
And then you sort of see he could have killed Jesus right there and then.
What do you want?
He could have killed him right there and then, but he lets them go.
I want to talk. Do you think very long?
And then he sort of stands up for his missus.
I am. No, you're not. It seems you found your king.
The child is not left to your father.
My father. What a house it is.
And then you sort of... And then she sort of starts to remember exactly what Gabriel has told her.
So much trouble. And this child is the king of Judea.
He hasn't come for your father's throne.
What kind of king is not on the throne? And is born in a place like this?
Which,
Who has come to save the lost?
Am I lost?
he sort of...
Like sheep, we all come astray. God is no one
Punishment for all.
And then you sort of see him, he recites scripture. So he knows scripture. He probably would have read the scrolls, which would have been available to him as King Herod's son. He probably would have read the Jewish scrolls. So for him, the fact that he just quoted the sheep passage shows that he has an understanding of the Jewish faith. But I think here he finally understands the prophecy. He probably would have read the prophecy in his youth. He might have just gone and read the scrolls. And now he has to make a decision whether or not he has to make a decision whether to follow
Well done, sire. Found them.
Yes, I did.
so he has to decide whether here and now do I follow Daddy's orders or do I follow the orders of the unknowable? And he sort of gets his answer for that song we heard earlier. Am I Dad? Am I like Dad?
Sire, please. Please. Sire.
This is now he's really started. He stands up to Dad.
These people are no threat to a true king.
Sire.
Now he's finally getting it. He decides to defy his father's orders and sort of say, no, these guys are under my protection. So you do see him change and click. And he,
I cannot protect you.
and we do know they go to Egypt from here, and they go into exile, I think, for about 30 or so years, until they get word back that King Herod has died. And then they go back to Jerusalem. So for about maybe 20 or so years, they live in exile in Egypt, which
King saw. He went. And so did we. From the man. Gather your things.
and in fact, we don't actually see that dream, and then you see him they actually
So the family prepared to travel to Egypt, knowing they would not be safe at home as long as Herod was alive.
Why don't I just continue?
and this is where we actually finally see
Very useful for the journey ahead.
and you still see the reaction. This is a very different reaction to Herod when he received the same thing.
It smells wonderful.
This is mine. That's everything else.
Do you feel it? You sort of see very much the difference. They sort of graciously get.
What does her actually do? Does everything you cannot quantify what
And then they start arguing again, the three wise men.
nobody cares about her. Just because I'm jealous of you. You gave me that thing.
And they start arguing again. So now they're heading on their journey. So you can almost watch this movie and we finally see the kiss. You could probably go from this movie straight into Risen quite you could probably go very seamlessly into both those movies, and of course I have to take Fig. And I think you don't have to be a Christian to really get this story. I think this could be a great introduction.
Wait. That is not how I remember it. I kissed you first.
That is the story of how you came to us. We have your scripture lesson.
Then it's off to bed.
And so there is creative license, but I think this would be a great sort of movie to show, to maybe to get people into understanding a bit about what Christmas really is, because it's very much a Christmas story. And I think this song here is really beautiful, actually. I probably might have had King Country, but that's just because of Joel's band. I think they do actually. I think the second song might be King Country. This is so well handled,
And I love it.
and that there's a lot of versions of this story out there, and you could comb through all of them. I think this is very beautifully done, and I think this is the first one that actually is a musical. So that's why it's a bit of a departure from other stories, other versions of this story, where I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I cried, I laughed. I thought it was so well handled. So that's my commentary for Journey to Bethlehem. So if you want me to do one of these commentaries again, please let me know. Please write in the comment section below. And enjoy the rest of the credits. And I shall see you very soon. Ciao.